I like your show. I like how you call homosexuality an abomination.
I don't say homosexuality is an abomination, Mr. President. The Bible does.
Yes, it does. Leviticus
18:22.
chapter and verse. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions while I had you here. I'm interested in selling my youngest daughter into slavery, as sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. She's a Georgetown sophomore, speaks fluent Italian, always cleared the table when it was her turn. What would a good price for her be? While thinking about that, can I ask another? My chief of staff insists on working on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:2 clearly says he should be put to death. Am I morally obligated to kill him myself, or is it okay to call the police?
I can't tell you how many radio stations I'm on where the opposition will say, have you ever read Leviticus 20? And I say, yeah, I've read Leviticus 20. What does it mean to you? And he says, a man who sleeps with another man is an abomination and should be killed. And I say, who should do the killing? You church people. And this Presbyterian in Seattle said, no, that's the civil authorities' job. That's why we need to get more good men of God elected in the government. And I said, so they can kill us? He said, well, you must find that hard to take, Dr. White, but God said it first, and it's our job to obey.
There's a fine way by.
I can't say where in the scheme of things that I saw this talk show and I realized that what I was embarrassed about was that I was thinking totally of how she was having sex and not about her as a person.
Here they are, Rod Jackson, Bob Paris.
These beautiful boys, they're gorgeous. They are.
When I saw the talk show with two guys, buff, good-looking guys, and they were asked the question, which one of you takes on the female role in the relationship? And they said, neither one of us. We are attracted to men. If we weren't attracted to women, we'd be with women.
We both enjoy being men.
And we both wear the pants in the family.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, yeah, so, but what about these that twist their butts and act like women? What are they attracted to? Who are they?
Hello, I'm Blaine Edward.
And I'm Antoine Mayweather.
And welcome to Men on Films, the show that looks at movies
from a male point of view.
And I'm thinking, but that's all you've ever seen. That's what comes to mind when you hear homosexual. You think of the girlfriend acting fella or the butch, dykey acting woman. You don't think about everyday people, and there are, quote, everyday people who are gay. And you're thinking about how they're having sex. And I had to realize that she was my daughter. She had the same personality. She enjoyed the same things that she did before I knew she was gay. And I had to stop thinking about telling you that way. And then, although I still do not approve of the lifestyle, it was a big burden off me that I could relate to her better, and I stopped trying to push her.
In Genesis 19, God burned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah because of homosexuality.
Well, that's the passage in Genesis, the 19th chapter, that everybody, even if they don't read the Bible, know about. Whether they're a part of a church or a temple, they know about Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a part of our secular wisdom, or lack of wisdom, such as the case might be.
Tonight on Greatest Heroes of the Bible, the struggle of a man against the forces of evil and of the awesome destruction wrought by an angry God against Sodom and Gomorrah.
In the 18th chapter, God says that he's going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah because he's heard that they're exceedingly wicked.
The angels of the Lord appeared to Abraham.
And he brings with him two messengers, angels, in the form of men. The next morning, Abraham accompanies the two angels to Sodom and Gomorrah, and he takes them to Lot's house. And Lot entertains them. He feeds them. He allows them to have lodging. It was required among the Hebrew people that if someone came to your door, you were obligated to take them in. One of the most serious social breaches was to not entertain a stranger.
Sodom was an incredibly wealthy community, and they didn't want to share their wealth and thought that if travelers passed through and were welcome, well, they might want to come and take our wealth. So they canceled the law of the welcoming of travelers. And having violated the rule of Sodom, They threatened Lot and his guests with violence.
I will send no guests from my house.
The Bible says in one translation, let these men come out so we can have sex with them. And another translation says, let these men come out so that we can know them. So we're not clear as to which translation is correct. My understanding of this passage is that these men wanted to gang rape these two males, these two strangers, as an act of humiliation.
Anal rape was a great way in the ancient mind to humiliate, demean, and punish. Armies that would defeat other forces would not uncommonly rape the defeated members of his army. The Sodom story is not about license or promiscuity or even perversity. Sodom, according to the rabbis, is about cruelty. It's about inhospitality.
And so the angels strike the men with blindness and then usher the family out to safety.
It's not about homosexuality. The city was doomed to destruction before the strangers arrived at the door. There has been 500 years of reputable critical scholarship in the English language on these texts. This is not something that somebody's just come up with in the last 3 or 4 years, apologists for a, quote, liberal reading of Scripture.
I know a lot of towns that are like Sodom and Gomorrah, that you can walk into these towns and they don't show any sign of hospitality simply because you're black or simply because you're gay or lesbian or just because you're an outsider. We have many towns here in New England that are like that. That's the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. And when I walk through those towns because I'm a black woman or a lesbian woman, that's when I think of Sodom and Gomorrah.
I really do think that Sodom and Gomorrah is about homosexuality. A lot of people today want to say it was really about hospitality. But if all we have is the Sodom and Gomorrah story, there's not a lot in the Old Testament that settles the question. We have to turn to the New Testament. The one that's very clear is Romans 1, the first chapter of the Epistle to the Romans.
In the first chapter of Romans, the Apostle Paul writes these words, God gave them over to shameful lusts, even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relationships with women and were inflamed with lust for one another.
It seems to me the clear meaning of that is that whatever the other stuff in the Old Testament, one thing that carries over as an enduring thing is that God disapproves of same-sex genital intimacy. He does not want men lying with men and women lying with women, denying the natural use.
When Paul uses the term natural or unnatural, he's really meaning what is customary or uncustomary. It wasn't customary for men to have sex with men in the Jewish context, but he saw it in the Greek world. And so he saw that as evidence of worshiping the wrong God, of idolatry.
His reference, of course, is to exploitive same-sex relationships among pagan Romans and Greeks. Paul certainly never contemplated the kind of monogamous, long-term relationships that are very much normal among homosexual people today.
The Bible really doesn't deal with homosexuality because it has no concept of it. There were no Greek words, no Aramaic words, no Hebrew words for these concepts of human sexuality. And therefore, the few references that have been lifted out of the Bible to be used in religious teachings to condemn homosexuality really are inappropriate.
When people talk about homosexuality, they often ask, is it a choice?
I heard it is.
Hello, what's your name?
Christian.
Well, Christian, let's see what the latest science has to say.
Oh, that.
To help us, here are two gay people, George and Martha. Before we can answer, is it a choice, we must first determine what it means to be gay. How do you know you're a homosexual?
The same way you know that you're straight.
Since the 19th century, many theories about homosexuality have been offered that are untestable and contradictory.
Male homosexuality is the result of an absent father and an overbearing mother. See ya.
Stand up straight, dear.
And the female homosexual has never recovered from her anger over not having the penis. She wishes to avenge her perceived castration by taking another female as her sexual object.
You're kidding me, right?
Well, I've always been told that homosexuality is unnatural.
Is it? In fact, homosexual relations are common in nature, including zebras, baboons, dolphins, sheep, buffalo, ducks, foxes, elephants, horses, gorillas, moose, house cats, pigs, mice, rabbits, swans, and lions, to name a few.
Well, okay, but we're not animals. Human beings have free will.
You don't just decide who to love.
Settle down there, Martha. Christian does have a point, but let's take a look at the most recent scientific evidence. As they study sexual orientation, scientists are currently looking at three main areas: genes, hormones, and birth order. Of course, most of these studies focus only on male sexuality. Sorry, Martha.
What a shock.
Let's first look at studies of identical twins.
Hi.
When one identical twin is a gay man, the other twin is gay up to 70% of the time, far higher than would occur if genes played no role. In fact, these studies show that genes play a greater role in determining sexual orientation than they do in whether or not you're right or left-handed. And we don't punish the left-handed. Well, not anymore.
Let's get it!
Scientists have recently noticed a striking statistical phenomenon. Studies show that having older brothers increases the odds of a boy being homosexual.
Moms always baby the youngest, making them gay.
No, that's not it. When a woman is pregnant with a boy, scientists are realizing that her female body often sees the male fetus as a foreign object and begins to produce antibodies against it. The more boys a woman has, the more adept her body becomes at feminizing the fetus, which may explain why with every successive boy, the odds that he will be gay go up significantly.
All right, maybe you all accept it, but what about those people who started out gay and say they became straight by discovering God? What about ex-gay ministries?
Even so-called ex-gay ministries don't claim to change a person's inner sexual desires, just his or her sexual conduct.
We're still gay.
If these places really work, why don't they all use the same technique? Why does each ministry experiment its own way?
Well...
And why have so many members and leaders recanted earlier claims that they were changed?
Maybe these programs don't work for everyone, but what's the harm?
How about the feelings of shame and guilt they instill and reinforce in their victims? Or the money, energy, and time they sap from people who have nothing wrong with them?
Says you.
Well, in point of fact, not just George says that, Christian. The American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Psychoanalytic Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the National Association of Social Workers have all stated that homosexuality should not be treated as a mental disorder, and that they oppose attempts at reparative or conversion therapy, and that sexual orientation is not a choice and cannot be changed.
So that's it. I'm supposed to believe that it's not a choice just because all those doctors and scientists say so?
Or you could just ask us.
I do know this one girl named Heather who goes back and forth, but she's
Shut up.
The information in this educational cartoon is based upon studies that can be found in any university library, with the possible exception of the Bob Jones University in South Carolina.